darkness, I found my light. With Jesus by my side, I conquer every fight. Walking in faith, I won't be afraid. His love surrounds me, my fears will fade. Hope is my anchor, love is my guide. With Jesus I'll overcome, I'll never hide. A warrior of strength, in His name I rise. In a world of chaos, His love never dies.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, owner of GodlyGranny.com, and podcast host, sharing the truth with you. This is the Michelle Moore Show.
Hi, everybody. So glad that you're with us today. Okay, so we got Steve Jarvis with us. Happy Monday. For those of you that don't know, Mark Taylor's father passed away. He definitely has his plate full, but be sure to keep Mark and his family in your prayers. Okay, so Debbie G she posts a review. This is so funny. Let's take a look at this. She sends me an email. The email is funny. It was really funny, but she put a review on the website a little while ago. It says perfection in a jar. She's talking about the whipped tallow face and body magnesium balm. I've been telling y'all, it's amazing. I thought that the grapefruit and mint was going to be my favorite. And then of course, I don't know, frankincense and myrrh. It smells so dreamy. Okay, so perfection in a jar. Just received my tallow from Godly Granny, and this product is unbelievable. I can say that with 100% certainty, as I have tried other tallows, and this one tops them all. From the moment you remove the lid, the smell is amazing. I purchased the frankincense and myrrh. Thank you so much for sharing that, because people need to know which one. And then when applying it, you will think that you just applied silk to your skin. The consistency is absolutely perfect, whipped and soft. Words to describe such a wonderful product: heavenly and godly, because honestly, it is perfect. I love the play on words. Oh, thank you, producer Ron. So we have it in the grapefruit. We've got the lavender and vanilla, grapefruit and mint, and then frankincense and myrrh, and then of course unscented. And I have to tell you, all of the four are equally dreamy. I love them. I wanted you to hear what another customer had to say. Actually, even Andrea with Reliable Beauty Reviews did a review over the weekend she released on this particular product as well. And we'll be showing it in the next couple of days or so. Okay, so wanted you to know about that. Wow, we have so much to go over today. Steve Jarvis is with us. You know how that goes. Let's go on ahead and bring him. Oh, before we bring him in, Dataganza. I want to remind you about Dataganza being this Friday. It's the Friday before Father's Day. Don't forget, we have the mystery boxes. We have 2 different mystery boxes on godlygranny.com. So we've already put together a couple of mystery boxes. In fact, we didn't do it. Producer Ron did it. So producer Ron picked his favorites. So there's a $75 worth of products for $60 and $120-ish of products for $100 plus any coupon codes you might have. Like, it is a deal. It's a steal. And it is filled full of goodies that producer Ron loves. Producer Ron loves things that smells good, by the way. So he's got his favorites. He does a good job. And so just wanted to make sure that you knew that if you hadn't bought Daddy a gift, well, this is your chance. It's not too late. Okay. And by the way, in kind of show prep time, just brace yourself. Steve Jarvis has been telling dad jokes. I told him that he gets a free pass this week since it's the Monday before Father's Day, but I don't know. Okay, let's bring him in. Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
Good. And your viewers, and you don't know I'm going to say this, but she told me I had to change my shirt. So anyway, this is how good Michelle Moore Show is. And also, too, I want to talk about the Godly Granny product, the product that has the frankincense and myrrh. If you go to the Tabernacle of Moses and you go into the altar of incense, that 2 of those ingredients were in the bowl. They were set on the altar of incense, and the guy that crushed them, the priest that went in, he actually was called an apothecary. So tell you about those products.
That's amazing. All right. So I saw this. I want to ask you who this person is. Producer Ron, will you bring this in? Who is this? I don't know who's in this picture. Producer Ron, let's see. Who's that?
I know. I I'm getting a haircut. I'm getting a haircut on Thursday because I'm going to Washington D.C. Yeah, I'm going back to speak again. So yeah, that's my new summer photo.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so tell us the update on the DC trip. So you've decided to go, you found out more information. Actually, is that who you were telling me that you just got off the phone with a little bit ago? And so you got more details. Okay, so it's fresh information. Tell us what's going on.
So I didn't know about this group. This group is Feds for Freedom, and these guys all work in the federal government in like CIA, intelligence, all that kind of stuff. And these people, they want to know what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on out in real America, what's going on. Just think about it. These guys live in the concrete jungle. They go to the office, and you can just imagine what's coming on their screen every single day. And they're holding this conference because they know something's bad wrong in America. And they're wanting to do this, especially at the 250th anniversary of America's birthday. And they want to try to get down to the nitty gritty of what is national security. So they've invited me to speak on food, farms, and national security, because let's face it, if you don't eat, we have a huge national security.
Yeah, so this says Feds for Freedom invites you to the national security beyond the headlines. And it talks about, producer Ron, can you make that a little bit bigger, please? It says a summit to discuss often overlooked national security concerns that must be addressed to protect and reinvigorate America for the next 250 years. So it's on July the 1st. It's a Wednesday. You'll be there. You asked the lady, why are you asking me to come and be a speaker? And what did she tell you?
Well, the thing about it is, she had heard that I'd written a farm plan for the entire United States of America through another person from another agency, and said, you need to have this guy on, because in my farm plan, number one is geoengineering, and we want to stop geoengineering in the weather. And we'll get to that in the show at some point, about talking about Stardust, which is the new gig coming down the pike for the United States of America. But they've asked me to come because they want me to talk about food and farms and national security. And I think that most people don't really realize what is going on in agriculture. We lost 15,000 farms last year, and we're going to lose 140,000 this year. And let's face it, everybody knows that the stuff in our food today is, well, what's in it, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. Well, we were just talking right before the show about the chickpeas. So tell us what you're seeing in your area. Share what you were telling us about that.
So I've always known them as garbanzo beans. I didn't know that garbanzo beans and chickpeas were the same. I never correlated it. You know, people in the city call them chickpeas. Farmers out here call them garbanzo beans. But one of the things and that's where hummus. So a lot of people, you know, eat hummus to be healthy, right? Is that right? A lot of people that are vegan use a lot of hummus because it's high in protein. But listen, folks, they are spraying the dog out of this chickpea out here with glyphosate. I mean, it's a Roundup ready crop. I'm just trying to tell you. Maybe some of your viewers your refrigerator is full of this stuff. Maybe you should send that to a lab for us and get it tested for glyphosate and see what the levels are in it.
Yeah, you know, I'm just thinking, so many people think they're eating healthy, right? And then they're going to end up with cancer from all of this glyphosate. It's like, it's crazy. They're completely, you know, just killing our food.
Yeah, there you go.
Hummus.
I mean,
and
it says non-GMO, and maybe, I don't know. But the thing about the labeling issue, we know that there's a problem with the labeling issue. And will they tell you the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you've got it right there. Third-party testing. I just had a whole thing last night and another meeting this morning just on third-party testing. And we're going to be talking about third-party testing more here on the Michelle Moore Show. And of course, my meetings have been because of Godly Granny and how to ensure the quality. How do I ensure that, you know, we're bringing the absolute best, you know, to our customers with Godly Granny? And that's what my meetings have been about, is making sure. And how do I make sure that we have good, reputable third-party testing? It's a big deal, and I'm very concerned about it. And that is how you do it. You get third-party testing. Well, like what you were saying about the hummus, you've got to. Tanya Jones says, please ask Steve about 3-day fasting using the moon phase calendar. It would reset the body. So I'm thinking it would be important when I do it. Thank you.
Yes. So if I was going to fast and I wanted to do it where it'd be easier on my body, what you do on my moon phase calendar. So I'm going to try to simplify this. All right. So the moon, every 28 days, the moon for 14 days it gets brighter, and for 14 days it loses light. Does that make sense? And there's
Yes.
fancy words for all that.
Yeah.
But the moon gains light, and it becomes a full moon, and then at 14 days, and then it starts decreasing. So what is happening in those time frames is the energy flow from the earth upward and downward is functioning in every living thing, every plant, every cat, dog, human, elephant, everything. And it's going up and down. And so what it does, it affects also the blood. So like what we do is when we castrate animals, we want to make sure that flow is downward. And so on my moon phase calendar, I've got green arrows up show you that it's completely upward and that the flow is high. But when it's going downward, so when you get my calendar and you look on there, there'll be like 2 green arrows down. So when you see 2 green arrows down the first time in that month, that's the beginning, starting in the certain zodiac sign, and that means that the flow has started downward in the physical body of all plants, animals, and everything. So then you're going to see neutral days, and those neutral days, those are days you want to make change. If you're going to fast, you would look in between the 2 green arrows, and then you'll look down. There'll be several neutral days, and there'll be 2 arrows down green again. Sometimes there's 3. And when you do that, there you go. But you can see right here, you can see the flow. What you would do is you'll see on the 4th and 5th here, there's the green arrows down. Then you would start your fast like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. And then the final change is the 13th and 14th. You want to be finished before the 15th. And because see, the flow changes back on the 17th, there's a new moon. Now, mixed in this are the 12 signs of the zodiac as well. And I know Christians are really spooky about that. And somebody messaged me out from a show that we had, and we talked about that, and they said about cutting your hair, and they said, sounds too spooky to me. And I told them that God set the moon and the stars and the sun in the heavens for signs and seasons. And this has been destroyed on purpose. The Rothschilds destroyed these teachings. And the reason they did destroy these teachings is because they know, because people always say, oh, I can't grow anything. No, you're probably doing everything on a red X day, and you shouldn't be planting and growing anything on a red X day.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Okay. So I know you've been having some coaching appointments as well. How are the coaching appointments going? I know that, you made a comment to me. You said, yeah, I'm, helping people and teaching people, but I learned from them too. And so you've learned random things. And so that sounds really good as well.
I do. And it's amazing because people from all over America are in different fields and doing this. So we talk and they tell me, hey, this is going on in my world, which is some of it is very shocking when you talk to nurses. I mean, you're like, really? This is what's going on in the hospitals? And it kind of blows my mind. And you can just draw the conclusions from there. But one of the things I want to share with people that most people don't really realize is we're going to go over the top 5 things in your dog food or cat food that they shouldn't be there. So everybody's going to run to their closet or pantry, and they're going to pull out their dog food sack, and you're going to turn it over. Is there wheat in there? Is there corn in there? Is there soybean? Is there salmon, or is there potatoes and pumpkin? Those do not need to be in a dog's diet. I know that some people say, oh, my dog ate pumpkin and he looks beautiful. Fine. If that works for your dog, fine. But I'm telling you, as a dog person, been in the dog world, and you can go to Steve Jarvis Vizslas. You can see I'm a Vizsla breeder. I've guided leaders from 40 different countries hunting. So I've been in the dog world a long time, and the moon phase calendar and all this stuff connects. And people don't realize, and they're doctoring their dogs on the cycles. And ladies, let's face it, your bodies are cycling, especially young girls. Your bodies are cycling according to moon phases on a 28-day cycle, whether you believe it or not. But our Roman calendar, now the calendar that you get from me is put into the calendar that we use today because nobody can understand it because it's all been lost.
Yeah. What about, and I think that's the whole point right there, though, when you say, well, women's bodies cycle, there's your proof right there. And so, I mean, I don't see how anybody could doubt it, quite frankly. I'm not old, just older too, says that glyphosate is killing. Oh, Iowans. It looked like an L. So I wasn't sure. I was like, Iowans higher than anywhere else. I wonder why. I went probably because there's so much farmland, and
Well,
so
I can
it's
tell you, I have the answer to that, because when
okay.
the reason that Iowa has so much a problem is because that is a corn state, and
Mhm.
that corn is genetically, it's GMO, and it's all sprayed with Roundup. It's all Roundup ready, and there's more spray in that area. And I'm old enough to know and remember people who used to pheasant hunt in Iowa, and there's no pheasants left. And the reason there's no pheasants left is because the glyphosate's killing them. And this is one thing I try to teach people is if you just look at creation, what is going on in creation? What is going on
Yeah.
with in the wilderness? When you see things disappear in the wilderness and in the wild, it's a big, you know, but what people have to notice is Iowa imports 95% of all the food that Iowans eat. Did y'all know that? 95%. You can look it up.
Imported from other countries.
Other states, other countries,
Mm.
95%. They used to grow all their own food, and now 95% Iowa imports from other states or other countries. All 95% is coming in because it's just
Wow.
gone to corn and soybean.
Okay. Well, the food thing is a whole nother ordeal. And so I was just saying this weekend to somebody, it doesn't really matter about the healthcare. It really doesn't matter about a lot of issues if we don't have food. And so that's why I'm glad to hear that you decided to go and speak to these people in DC and help them to hopefully see that this is a big issue. Was it the lady today that you spoke to that you were telling me about where they were talking about the next 250 years and you said, I don't know that we have 250 years if we don't get the food thing under control in the next 5 years, within the next 5 years. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's go on ahead and change gears. I want to play this video. I want to show you and the viewers about what this politician does to a guy who says that the guy is claiming that data centers actually lower the utility bills. Let's take a listen to what happens here.
You also said that data centers lower utility bills, not raise them. Do you still stand by that statement?
Yes, on balance, they are the biggest force we have right now to stop the rise of electricity prices and ultimately to drive them down. Yes.
What if I told you that I represent more data centers than any other member of Congress, and data centers have actually doubled our energy costs? What would you think of that?
I would. They've been developed data centers in your area for a long time. So, but were data centers the driver of a doubling in the real cost of energy?
Yes.
I would say that
And it's going to continue to actually increase our energy costs. I can show you my utility bill, anywhere from 25% to 200% increases in our utility bills only because of data centers.
Okay. So, I'm not surprised to hear that somebody's trying to peddle that lie, Steve.
Well, no, and the thing about it is, Michelle, I told you breaking news coming on before we entered the show is Lee Zeldin. He is the head of the EPA, and I was going to meet with Lee Zeldin last year, talking about this geoengineering, and then that day, the meeting got canceled, and he came out and said that geoengineering is real, and so now all us conspiracy theorists out here have been saying this stuff for years and years. He's coming out, yeah, well, it's true, but we really don't know what the harm it's doing. Well, today, Lee Zeldin just gave a waiver to all data centers in America that the federal government is not going to regulate any of the pollution or the heat. Some places are saying it's going to raise the temperature 28 degrees within a 16-mile radius of that data center. So all you people out there, get your bathing suits on that live near data centers because it's fixed to get hot. The other thing is they're going to, the water and all that. So they're going to kick it to the states. Now, let me tell you how this works in the federal government and the states. How this works is the federal government says, we're not going to regulate the data centers because the federal government wants the data centers. So they're not going to regulate them. So they kick it back to the states. But the federal government gives funding to the states and says, we want to partner with you on these projects on this. And then the state says, well, we don't want the data centers because it's going to use too much water. The farmers need it. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the federal government will say, well, we can't fund you on this certain project if you don't do this, and this. And so they control it anyway. That's what people don't understand. And I don't know anybody that wants the data centers. And there actually shouldn't be called data centers, right? It's not data.
It's interesting because, Steve, I was telling you that this absolutely runs parallel to the education. So when my children were in elementary school, we used to hear all the time, I think it was title, I don't remember, title whatever. It was a single digit number, 8, 9, whatever. It was a title, 8 school. And we had to have this meeting tonight in order to be able to, we're a Title 8 school and, all this stuff. And so that's when I started hearing about this, that we get money and we get it from the federal government, but we have to do this meeting and we have to, there's all these different benchmarks and different things that they have to do. And so this sounds very familiar to education and does not surprise me.
So do you know what the benchmark during COVID was when they sent all the children home and then the schools when they cranked back up? Does anybody know what the benchmark was? So the school here where I'm local, Potlatch, Idaho, this school, it's got 450 students. That's K through 12. Okay, 450 students. They got $660,000 of COVID federal relief money. Do you know what the benchmark was for them to keep the money? Is to put 28 books that had porn in them in the schools.
Wow.
Oh, and I'll go to another level on that. Do you know who wrote the books and the curriculum for this? Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
Really? I think it's also interesting that it was 660,000. So you're talking about 66 again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I just happened to hear that part of it as you were saying it. All right, tell us about, we talked about the Stardust stuff, that project a couple of weeks ago. Not really seeing anybody talking about it, which is kind of shocking. To me, this seems like it's just the furthering of the dimming of the sun, which we ran that documentary. Look, to me, anything to do with dimming of the sun, first of all, is not within line of the Word of God. We know that in order for things to grow and to flourish, that we need the sun, just like we people, not just plants and flowers, need sun and water and good soil. But we as people, we're healthier. In fact, a lot of people don't understand this or necessarily know this, but they ran during the whole slowing of the spread. They took 84 people, put them in a study, and showed that got COVID, and showed that if they gave them high doses of vitamin D3, which I'm talking about 50,000 IUs for 2 days, and then it went down to 37,500 IUs. Then it kept stepping down, and over that period of a week, only one person was hospitalized, and that person was obese. And so not just overweight, but obese. And so everybody else was able to stay out of the hospital. This has to do with the sun. It has to do with vitamin D3. It has to do with the sun, because that is the best way to get vitamin D3. Vitamin D is being out in the sun, as we know. And so they're trying to dim the sun, which I think is part of also killing our food, killing us, getting us sick. It's all interconnected. But to me, it's about the dimming of the sun is the most concerning to me, because again, it's killing all of creation. Everything that's in line with God, really, and his creation.
Well, the Stardust thing is really cranking up. You can go to thegeofight.com. You can go to their website. I'm connected to those attorneys there on this fight but this Stardust is big. And my understanding is the way this works is any company in the world can go to NOAA or NASA, either one of those, and say, hey, we want to spray this stuff, file out the paperwork, do whatever and in 10 days, they get a clearance from the United States government to do whatever they want to do. And they're trying to get clearance to put millions and millions of these particulates of this Stardust, and they're going to put it way, way up in the troposphere or the stratosphere. They're going to put it way up there. And that stuff, sometimes it takes 3 years before that stuff falls to the ground. And what it's going to do is their goal is to drop the temperature of the earth by 4.5 to 5 degrees. Well, when they do that, this is going to be catastrophic. It's going to be, all you have to do is go look up volcano research where volcanoes has exploded, and you just look at how that ash spread over and look at what happened in those regions around them. And that's what they're planning on doing. And it's all under the climate change BS. That's climate change. The only climate change there is coming out of the tailpipes of all their junk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary though, that they've really brainwashed some people to think that climate change is the real thing.
Well, we do watch catastrophic weather, don't we? We watch flooding in Kirk County. We watch droughts. We watch all this. and I will tell you this, in being in agriculture, you're really in tune with the weather and what's happening, because used to in farming, yeah, we'd have a drought. Yeah, we'd have a little bit too much rain. We'd have to wait a few days. No, in the last 15 years in agriculture, for me, what it's been is catastrophic. We get 13 inches of rain or we get no rain. And
That's right.
And there's no in between. Or we get 9 inches and then it dries up, and then we get 15 or whatever. And it's catastrophic to farming. And they do this. And listen, what I really honestly believe, the way the weather modification and geoengineering and cloud seeding and people, please don't believe this lie that, oh, we're going to help the rancher and farmer. It's not true. They cannot make it rain. If they could make it rain, 1 million acres wouldn't have burned off in Nebraska last month. Okay. They can't. If they were going to do that, we would put the fire out, right? I mean, you just have a 1-900 airplane guy, spray right now, make it rain. No, they steal water from somewhere else and they dump it somewhere else. That's what cloud seeding and all that does. And it's detrimental to agriculture, because it's all the way down or all the way up. It's never in between.
Yeah, I've noticed that too in the last year or so. I know that producer Ron and I were talking about that one day, and I said, last year was the driest summer, I think, of my life. We went, months without any rain.
Yeah, but you had a flood in the spring, right?
Yeah,
you got from February through April. You guys, people's had that much water standing in their gardens and their fields, and then it dries up. That's what I'm talking about.
It rained so much we couldn't get out of the neighborhood because it flooded in the neighborhood for days. Yeah. And so it was craziness that was going on. But you're right, it's one or the other. I'm absolutely in agreement with you on that. All right, one of the things we talked about a couple of weeks ago as well, I saw this video, I wanted to talk about it. So the Ford CEO's name is Jim Farley. He says that people shouldn't be able to work on their cars. He says it's too complicated. Let's take a look.
You don't want people repairing their own vehicles.
No, that's fine. Not for warranty work, though. These are very complicated cars, and we don't think that's safe for many of the repairs on our vehicles. Someone at home like myself could never do it. I have no problem working on a 73 Bronco. To work on a brand new Bronco, I need all sorts of specialty tools. That's something that we would put people's lives at risk.
Here's what real Americans have to say about this. If I can't work on my own vehicle, I expect a bumper-to-bumper warranty for at least 200,000 miles. Obviously, we all kind of agree with this one, but you need special tools because you design them like that. Exactly. Auto manufacturers design vehicles that you can't work on. That's how they make their money. Now let's look at the data. Now it looks like about $101 billion in revenue comes from Ford Blue, which is parts and service. Ford Pro, which is another parts and service thing, they have about $66.3 billion in revenue. So overall, they make about $50 billion every single year from parts and repairs. I think we found the real reason why they don't want you repairing your vehicle.
And you've said the same thing with John Deere, that they're doing the same scan on farmers when it comes to, making it where the farmers, with the electronics and all of that the technology has gotten so complicated and so whatever that farmers can't even work on their own tractors anymore.
Well, I can tell you this, it looks like John Deere is going to lose this lawsuit of $50 million on this issue, because the fact of the matter is, the real issue is they used to build tractors. I have a 1978 Ford tractor that still runs great and I can work on it. And that's what they've done. They built products, Ford, John Deere, Case, they all built tractors that lasted. And what happened is everybody kept using them. Well, guess what? They realized that they weren't going to make any money anymore, so they started doing the emissions. My son is a mechanic. He is certified on John Deere, Cat, all these Kubota, all these things. But what's really interesting, when you go in where he used to work at a mechanic shop, they had to buy these plans, and these plans allows you to link to the tractor and repair the tractor. Well, every year you have to rebuy that program in order to work on it, and they plug it in. Well, most of that stuff has to do with all this emissions crap that's on there now. And let's face it, Obama made jillions and jillions of dollars on DEF for these vehicles to be run through.
Talking about the cars for clunkers or clunkers for cash program?
Well, No, not only that, but DEF was where they added this DEF fluid in there that was going to make it the environment clean. It burns cleaner out the towel pipe because this thing goes into this clean burn mode and it injects this DEF fluid, which is actually urea. It's just fertilizer, folks. It's just liquid fertilizer is all it is. And then injects it in there on these sensors that make it burn hotter and cleaner while you're running down the road. I have a machine out here right now that a skid steer that I own that has that on it. And if that thing gets a little moisture in or something, that thing goes to blinking and it goes into limp mode and it will run about quarter the speed. And then you got to go in and you got to get a guy that's got a computer. And let's face it, the reason they don't want you to do any of this stuff anymore, you literally have to have a laptop and you have to have their programming system or you're not fixing this piece of equipment anymore. So you talk about fixing it, but I will tell you something funny. I remember when in Texas and the new Dodges came out in 2012. 2012 was when they started with the DF, and they sent these young kids would buy these new models on these jacked up Dodges. They'd say, "Oh, you can." These guys would cut the tailpipe, the catalytic converter. They would reprogram that thing, and they'd have that thing running and blowing. They call it rolling coal. It'd be black smoke coming out the back of that thing. They'd love to pull it beside those Priuses and give them a little goose job. These kids are so intelligent on these things. They've never been to college. They can fix and tune these trucks. So this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because I guarantee you, I can find a redneck that didn't finish 8th grade that can redo one of them in a week.
I love it. I love it. Charles Scott over on YouTube, he says porn books in school is disgusting. Never should be in schools. We absolutely agree with you, Charles Scott. Are we okay? So we got a question for you. Amy says, are we under judgment? Do you think it will get better or just better for a while? Ugh.
Well, the thing about it is, the Bible talks about it talks about that you're judged already. If you're out of sync or with the creator of the universe, and you have to do that through Jesus, you have to be in sync with him. But are we under judgment? Here's the way I like to look at things. I like to look at things in two categories. There's order and there's out of order. You can be in order in this matrix we live in. You can be in order in an out of order system. And does the judgment, if you go look at all the scriptures and all the things that are in the Bible, when judgment did come on places, look who it bypassed. Go look at when Moses went in the last plague. The death angel came. They put blood over the doorposts. Right. So the judgment came. But the issue is judgment. Yes. Is our nation under judgment? Yes. And the reason our nation is under judgment is because it's out of order. We have all the Epstein files. We have all these things. I'm going to speak on this. When I talk about national security, if you want to talk about national security, I'm going to speak on this, because if you go to Deuteronomy and says your kneading bowl will be empty, you know what that means? There's nothing in the field to fill that bowl to make flour out of. And then when that your kneading bowl, because you've done this and you've done that, there is a certain order. In my book on joy, it's on the Michelle Moore. You can go to our website or you can go to mine, sass-usa.com. My book on joy, in the back of it, there's called the 12 open doors. Those are forbidden territories, and they're forbidden territories for the nation. And you're under judgment let me just say this. When the nation is this way and it's facing these situations, the judgment is already in place. It's like if you jump off a building, it's not that God is judging. The absence of anything being able to keep you from floating in the air, that's what matters. And that's the issue. These things are always in place. And when you're out of order, and that's what I help people do. When people call me about their animals or call me about their life or whatever, and the people call me, they tell me, oh, I got this, and they tell me all these things wrong with them. But they got Harry Potter books sitting in there on their deal, and it's just forbidden. And that's the thing, Michelle, what I'm finding out, and it's always been that way, people just don't know. The church has failed to tell the people what you can and can't do. As a believer, I'm talking to you as a believer. If you're a non-believer, these things affect you the same. If you run a stop sign at where the train lights blinking, guess what? Judgment's coming, and it's coming immediately.
All right. So Terry is asking, says, hello, Michelle Moore family. Blessings. I just came in from planting my second crop of onions according to Steve's moon phase calendar. I follow it to a T. Thank you, Steve. That's awesome. Awesome news. Keep us updated, Terry, on your garden. I want to hear about it. Flygirl61 says, did you say on a prior show that you use sheep wormer for your dogs? How do you use it? And is it available at farm supplies? Did you say sheep wormer?
Goat warmer.
Goat. Okay.
I've got a bottle of it. Hold on right here.
Okay. All right. Christ Believer says it's starting out dry already this summer. Grass is burning up. That's so true. I'm seeing the same thing, Christ Believer. Okay. So show us your bottle here.
Can you see that?
Here we go. So everybody can see that. All right.
All right. So if you want, you see this one?
The dewormer. Safeguard.
Folks, see, this one says cattle. This one says goat. It's the same product. I'm going to give some information. This is for entertainment purposes only. And the views and expressions on this show, are not expressive of those, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
There is no such thing as antibiotics for humans and antibiotics for dogs. There's no such thing. Antibiotics are antibiotics. And they crank them out. And I would do this, Michelle. I used to drink this. Here's another one. This is a really good product. I used to put together a war package before they destroyed my company. I'd put together this war package, and what it would have everything in it that a person would need for their dog. And we called it the war chest. And it was so awesome. And during COVID, we were just shipping those out. And that's what got me in trouble, because not only did I tell all the products and give a list of everything you need if your dog or your mammal's got a problem, and I gave all the videos on how to do it, which is in my apothecary. Okay, it's not my apothecary book. When you go to my website and you download the apothecary book, it just says apothecary book. I can't put my name on it because I have not gotten my honorary doctorate degree yet. I'm waiting. So when I get my honorary doctorate degree, I can sign it then.
Okay.
But until then, but all the information's there, folks.
All right. Terry says, that's what's wrong with the cars today. My husband had to help my brother-in-law change bulbs in his headlights. They had to take the whole front end off, for goodness sakes. Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Kazadu says, can you use the it's dewormer, right? Goat dewormer on cats? Yes,
you can.
Okay. So there you go. That's a good question, Kazadu.
Well,
I'm sure
but that's what I would do. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm saying I would deworm my cat with it.
Yeah, and that's all we can do is just share what we would do or what we do. Okay, so and we're fixing to talk about the Church's Clear channel. Okay, so let's move on. I saw something. I don't know. I don't know. I got a bad feeling. And so I want to show this video and then we'll kind of go from here. But it's about the Roman circus. Let's take a listen.
I don't care how long he works and I don't care what he does. There is no job worth $2 million a year. That's why they pay athletes these fantastic salaries. I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year. Can you believe this?
And why is that?
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. Then he begins to throw the Christians to the lions, and he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the emperor. 150 of the most powerful men and women in the world can meet in secret in Baden-Baden, Germany, and plot the fate of billions, and nobody even cares about it. But 6 football players go to lunch together and it's in the headlines across the country, you have a reflection of the society in which that exists.
All right. And then, of course, we had this UFC thing last night, which I don't really get. If somebody can share a little bit of light and shed some light on the purpose, I just didn't really get it. And why so much media being about it. And then I saw this video and it just made me think about the UFC thing. So, Steve, what do you know about it? Do you know anything or have anything to share about it?
Well, I do know this, that it had more views than any Super Bowl game ever in history. It had
Wow.
130 million people. So it tells you 130 million viewers watch this. And what's really let's talk about agriculture. Let's talk about, according to this, do y'all know that it costs $700,000 to do the grass repairs for that stadium? $700,000, $700,000 of your tax dollars. Let's forget the UFC fight. Let's forget the gladiator deal. Let's forget Nero, plays the fiddle while Rome burns. That's the thing. The emperor, and it's all a distraction. And it's, folks, let me just say this. The wiser you get and the more awake you get, the more painful it is, because you can't undo what you see. And once you know how to do this, but what it does do, it allows you to live outside the matrix. And living outside the matrix. Now, listen, I'm going back to DC. I can't tell you, Michelle, I've had 50-50 people say, oh, well, Steve, my neighbor said, Steve, the only reason they're flying you to DC is because it's cheaper to fly you to DC than it is to send a SWAT team after you. Well, listen, I told him, thank you for the encouragement.
Oh, my goodness.
But here's the issue, folks. When you don't know what is going on, you can't speak correctly to the things that you want to see go on. And one of the things you have to understand is what they do is, you know what they do? They write a plan down. And that's one of the things that I'm going to speak on in DC is, what is the plan? If you don't have a plan written down, there's no way to execute it. And you know what they do? These people have billions and billions of dollars. They take your money, your Social Security money. They tax us to death, and they take your money and they write a plan on what they're going to do for the next 20 years. And it's all, you can read it in Agenda 2030. You can pull it up on your own thing. Read what's going to happen. They're talking about killing 2/3 the 2/3 of the world's population by 2030. I mean, just calculate, just do your math to say how many people have to die per day between now and 2030. It's mind blowing.
Well, I don't know that I even believe the numbers that they give us anyways when it comes to the population. So they claim that there are 330 million people in the United States. Well, that's 33 again. We're back to, these Masonic numbers. So who even knows what's really the population and what's really going on? I don't even believe any of the stuff they report. Cousin who says, did you see where that one UFC fighter screamed at the end, Michelle Obama is a man?
Yeah, but all of us that have been in the conspiracy theorist truth world, we just tell them the truth. It's not a conspiracy theory that came up from the CIA. That phrase, right. It came up from them, so that knocks you out of the game when you're talking about. That's why that you get shadow banned on Instagram and all this stuff. You're manipulating the truth, which is not.
Well, it started. Well, hold on a second. Now it started during the whole JFK assassination.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they had to shut up the people that weren't buying the whole agenda. And so the CIA has admitted this on camera. This is a fact. But they admitted that they absolutely started this whole conspiracy theorist terminology. It's just like calling people racist, and they think, oh, if we call white people racist, they'll shut up. It's the same thing. Nobody wants to be called a conspiracy theorist, and nobody wants to be called a racist. And so, it's the whole. I think it's part of the art of war. They'll just come out with whatever, whether it's true or not, because to shut you up, because odds are what you're saying is true. They can't have that. They can't have people waking up.
Well, in that book, The Art of War, one of the number one things is to destroy your enemy before he comes to you. And that's what they do. You should share this. I know that probably your group, the average age people that follow me on Instagram, I've got 122,000 followers, Out of the Wild 3D, if you want to follow me there on Instagram. But the average age of my group is about 48 to 65, and mostly ladies. But Michelle, I find it interesting that we're not tapping into the younger generation who is really starting to really wake up, especially after TPUSA. The Charlie Kirk thing is backfiring on them. People are calling the young people, but they don't have a plan and they don't have answers. And if you'll look at what the agenda is for them, is for them to own nothing and be happy, right?
Yeah.
That's the plan. And if you want that plan to be reversed, I'm going to be announcing a brand new plan on July the 1st. I'll announce it on July 1st. My new plan will be finished July 1st, and we're going to announce that. And I'm going to announce that in DC, and then Michelle will talk about it on the next Monday on your show. So I've got a plan, and your young people, they're going to want to know what it is.
The thing about it too, though, I think I mentioned to you that I hadn't really been spending much time on Facebook over the last, 6 months to a year. Part of it is, first of all, people have gotten so nasty. I just can't stand it. People would say things on there that they would never say in person. But the other thing is, it seems so superficial. You got grown women that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s doing these, just like, well, look at my new purse I bought, and look at me, I went to Target, and look at my new Target haul. And it just seems so superficial. And by the way, a lot of what they're sharing that they're getting is so horrible for you. They're like, look at my hairspray. And I just cringe. I just can't hardly watch any of it because it's just nails on a chalkboard for me. But these people have no idea what is even going on in the world. And they don't want to. That's the other part. A lot of people are looking the other way because it's just best and it's most comfortable, and I think most beneficial for them. It's the life that that they want to live, and they want to look the other way. They don't want to hear about kids, and they don't want to hear about the taxes and where the money's going and the data centers. Until the data center shows up in their backyard, they're not going to worry about it. I had somebody one time when I was talking about Kathy O'Brien, I was reading her book at the time. I had someone say, it sounds like you need to read different books and and they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want to talk about it. And I've had people that I think don't want to know, because if they knew, then it's on them. Like, what would they do about it? They don't want to do anything about it. They want to stay out of it. They want to be comfortable. And I think some of the worst ones are so-called Christians. Because it's just me personally, it's the observation. Maybe it's just because a lot of the people that I'm around are Christians. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's not just all Christians, but maybe it's just my own little group. But it's frustrating because a lot of people, don't want to know. They don't want to hear it. And I've got friends who try to talk with their, even like their in-laws or just different people. And they'll say, oh, well, my mother-in-law said she doesn't want to hear about it. She's lived 72 years and, she doesn't want to hear about it now. She wants to just live her life. And it's like, wow, people don't want to know.
And the thing about it is, if what's happening right now in America and worldwide, actually, this stuff is speeding up. And if you don't know what's coming down the pike, and if you don't know, you can't say anything. That's one of the reasons I'm going to DC. Somebody said, they talk about, and Christians are some of the worst about the way they speak. Oh, don't go because you're going to wind up in the bone pile. Well, here's the issue. Let's just give it a scenario. Let's say that I'm going to DC, and let's say they had a plan to put me in the bone pile. Well, I'm not going anywhere until the creator of the universe says so. And the actual fact of the matter is that we're all going to the bone pile in 5 to 6, 7 years if they continue the way they're going with this food stuff. If they put stardust in the atmosphere and they knock the temperature down and knock the sun rays out, so what? Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? This is why your young people ought to wake up. And we should tap into these young people. The young people should be the ones most angry about this, because Michelle, you and we've lived some good life and good years in this. Even though we've had a corrupt government system for a long time, they pretty much left us alone until COVID, right?
Yeah.
I mean, secretly they've done stuff, but not as openly as they had during COVID. I mean, they put your mask on you. You can't go to work. You can't do this. And they're telling you what you can and can't do. And this is a national security issue. And that's one of the things I'm going to speak on.
All right. So now there's Ebola. Let's take a look at what's going on over in the Congo. They're trying to claim that there's a huge outbreak, but Let's unpack it. This video does an amazing job.
Thanks to all of you, the hentai virus is now out of the news cycle. They've now replaced it with the deadly Ebola outbreak in the Congo. But thankfully, the people are not having it.
Currently, I am in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for a couple months, okay? And there's no Ebola here. Everyone is living the best life. No one is panicking.
Mining gold is one of the top businesses over there, and it releases high levels of arsenic, which leads to arsenic poisoning, and arsenic poisoning and Ebola have the same symptoms. And again, they're using the same fraudulent PCR test to see if you have it. Even Tedros from the WHO came in for a photo op. This guy claims it's so deadly, but he walks around with no protective gear. Same with CNN. And guess what? Moderna just landed a $50 million funding to create an Ebola mRNA vaccine. And the funding came from CEPI, which is bankrolled by the Gates Foundation. You can't make this up. So the question becomes, why the Congo? This country sits on top of almost $500 billion worth of gold. And as war expands, gold takes value. Congo also leads the world in lithium, copper, and cobalt. Exactly what you need to build these electric cars and data centers. There's no coincidences here. You poison the people or use something that's already there. You build a narrative to control the area and you drain the resources. So just like every other pandemic, this story needs to stay where it belongs.
I like that he called it a pandemic. I liked that he called it a pandemic. That's so true.
Well,
There's a lot connected there.
Yeah, and I'm going to connect this to ag, because you got to realize that Moderna has got all this money and Bill Gates is connected. Well, the next thing is just got done also too in the United States of America is the flagship is Pioneer. If you go up, you can look up Pioneer Seed, but the U.S. company they're the behind this new RNA. We've talked about this on your show. Potatoes are going to be sprayed this year for the first time. They're going to get an RNA spray on them, which is going to genetically change them. And guess who's behind this game? It's Bill Gates. And he's getting money and he's getting clearance from the Trump administration to do that. I can't believe that Bill Gates just was in the Senate telling about, and you notice that's what's funny is Bill Gates in town, the UFC fight's in town, and he's blowing the whistle on Epstein stuff and all that. And he's under him, not a word and all that stuff. And behind the scenes, but this guy is a criminal and this guy has committed genocide all over the entire world. And it's coming to your grocery store pretty soon because this RNA spray has just been approved.
Yeah. I have a theory when it comes to Bill Gates, or some suspicions. And so I've never talked about it, but let's talk about it. Okay. So I interviewed David Quigley. He's the guy a couple of years ago. I interviewed him. Probably really ought to reach out to him and see about him coming back on. But he's the guy that says that he's really JFK Jr. And I read his book. And the reason that I ended up deciding to have him on the show was the part when, first of all, there were a number of things that just didn't sit well with me, and I'll explain. But what happened was he talked about being raised with who we know as John F. Kennedy Jr. And they used to call him John John. He was a number 2, and that's why he's called John John. And that was like, oh, wow. Okay. There's photos of him with John F. Kennedy Jr. They were teenagers with Onassis. And I've always thought that it was very odd that Jackie Kennedy Onassis, she married 2 bloodlines. I mean, I don't know that a lot of people understand or realize that of the 13 bloodlines, that Kennedy is one of the bloodlines. People don't like to talk about it, but it's true. It's not just all the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. There are 11 other bloodlines, and one of them is Kennedy. And then also, which that's a whole nother thing that you hear about in Kathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America. She talks about being taken down to Alabama from Tennessee, down to the Kennedy Space Center, and being trafficked there. Like in Huntsville, she says the sheriff was in on it, all of this. It was a whole thing, and they were doing MK Ultra programming and all kinds of stuff down there. But there's a lot of bad things that, the Kennedys are connected to. But I've kind of held out and said, well, RFK Jr. could, and JFK Jr., the one we know of or whatever, who knows? But it's like, well, we could have where you can have somebody that makes a difference and decides to do things differently. There are people like I have broken generational things in my bloodline where I said no longer with me. Just because this was done before me and before them, that doesn't mean that it's going to continue with me. And so, we can all have those choices, right? And so I've had hopes that the Kennedys were, that maybe RFK was going to be one of those. All right. Then you've got where he had other things too, but she married an Onassis, which is a bloodline. It is a 13 bloodline, family bloodline. And so what's the odds of that? And so it's very suspicious. I mean, I know a lot of people don't want to think about this, but it don't look good. I'm just telling you. And so how she married two different bloodlines. And then he actually says his mother got killed in front of him when he was a little boy, and that we hadn't seen the real one in years, and all that. But anyways, and so I think that he also says that the real Trump, Donald Trump, was killed back when the helicopter went down with the executives to the casino that Trump owned. So there is a documented helicopter accident. I said, well, then why not just report that Donald Trump died? And he said, because the brand, the name, it has its own stuff. And so he says that the three kids, Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, were all MK Ultra'd and all of that. And that Trump, when Donald Trump had the real one, passed away. I'm just sharing the story. Now, we've been told that back in, 2012, 2014-ish, somewhere around there, there's a lot of coverage about Bill Gates and his wife, Melinda, being killed. And I think it was in South Africa. It had to do with the shots they were given out, and they were killed. I guess there was some kind of a jury, and they were found guilty, and all this kind of stuff. So, anyways, there was an investigation, and it had to do with the shots that they were doing in another country. Now, if that's true, did the same thing happen potentially that supposedly happened with Trump? I mean, there's so much stuff. It's all just so convoluted, but it could be the same thing where everybody knows Bill Gates' name. They use it. The deep state uses it, and they continue to use it because they can just blame it all on this Bill Gates figure. During the whole COVID, we saw a Bill Gates that was walking around looking like he had breasts, like literally. And so it's like, okay, do we know what's going on? No, we do not know. And so, but I just wonder sometimes and think about that and think, is that a name that could fill an agenda? And they just wouldn't let that name and that legacy, so to speak, you can't let that come out that Bill Gates died. Everybody's going to want to know what happened. And so they got to keep on acting like Bill Gates is really, and Melinda is really alive. And now they've gotten a divorce and all this other kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. It's a theory. It's a thought. I don't know. What do y'all think? But, at the end of the day, my issue is the UFC thing. And I've read so many presidential model books and, that went through MK Ultra, and they talk about, this is true. This is, in fact, it's much worse than what we really openly talk about here on the show about some of the stuff that really goes on. They say that down below where the games are happening, that there are people that are busy about the important business, that there are meetings that are going on underneath, and that there are powers that be that are busy taking care of their evil plans. So I don't watch games. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I think that there's a lot of stuff that goes on with these sports and things. It doesn't make sense that they make so much money. I think the making the money is what makes them so intriguing, and why people give it so much attention. And look, these people are under control anyways. A lot of them are under control. I've listened, and I've even spoken with people that were married to professional ball players and sports players. And so it's interesting, but the fact of the matter is, they pay all this big money, tens of millions of dollars to a lot of them. And that in itself puts them up on a pedestal and makes them look bigger and more, whatever. And I think that's part of it and part of the whole draw for people,
Well, and I would encourage your listeners, try to find people that are like nobodies out there that have been saying things for years and years and years. I actually kind of accidentally wound up becoming a social media influencer just because I started telling truth about certain things that have been going on for years. When I tell people, I've been telling people that I was sprayed by the military in 1989, and that was before computers and cell phones. And I tried to tell them that they've been doing this. So, and now people can hear me. We have social media and a lot of these things. I started talking about the vaccines on dogs. I was screaming about dogs and mammals killing over from vaccines. And then I gained momentum and became popular because I'm just a regular guy, really. I mean, I've been through a lot, I've been a lot of places, but yeah, I'm just a regular guy. And those are the people that you really need to listen to.
And the ones that are actually doing something, just like with Cindy, who was here last week, who's part of the whole, spreading the word and the truth about the Florida kill law. And then you've got Grace's dad. They killed, Grace, and he's now written a book. He's got a podcast. He's out, he didn't know, and neither did she. And so it's so interesting because it took a tragedy for them to really wake up and they got shots, they got boosters. They didn't know. They really genuinely didn't even know anything was going on. Sharice Rose says, it's an interesting theory. And honestly, we've been lied to about everything. So one never really knows. I know. And there were parts of Quigley's story that was in his book, and then also in conversations that I had with him that were interesting. I can tell you that I'm convinced that he certainly has been to MK Ultra'd. I never asked him, but there were things about him that definitely pointed to that for me. And so, and look, you just don't know, but he talks about in the book, you can tell that, he was abused, and there's probably who only knows how badly and to what degree, but that in itself is part of MK Ultra. And so, who really knows? And I thought that he deserved to be heard. And so I'm not saying I agree or disagree or believe or don't believe. It's for you to, to make up your own mind. And so I just bring you the information. KM Sunshine says, if the real Trump died in a helicopter crash, then what about all the prophecies that Mark got from the Lord about Trump? Exactly. But is it the real Trump, or is it this Trump figure? Who knows? I've thought about the same thing. It's a great question. I don't call Mark a false prophet either. Now, Mark doesn't call himself a prophet, so we have to be careful with that verbiage, because you don't, just because you can operate in the gifting doesn't make you a prophet. And Mark does not call himself a prophet. So someone is lying about the real Trump being killed in a helicopter crash, or who knows? And so that's the point. We don't know. And here's the thing. This is what I've said before, Steve, and I want to talk about this. It's like, I've said before, like the Holy Spirit said to me, how does this, one day he said, and I saw a vision of like who represented my viewers. And it was a person, and he was like sitting at a breakfast nook table, a round table. And he said, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, how does this impact your viewers? Like how does this impact your viewers? And it was like this download about how does this impact them day to day, tangibly, like in their everyday lives. And so I just don't focus a lot on some of this stuff. It's just like I've said numerous times, I was not going to talk a lot about the Charlie and Erica Kirk stuff, especially in the very beginning, because there was no way to know what was the truth. And I was just smelling skunk from the beginning, and who knows what he knew, what he didn't know. We now know all this other stuff about her parents, the CIA connections are undeniable. And so in the Aquino stuff, who knows of what the relation is, if any. But at the end of the day, well, how does this lower my viewers' gas bill and their food bill, and help them to be able to tangibly have things that they can take away to live a better, longer, healthier life? Because that's the calling on my life, right? And so we've talked about that, where God, gave me the vision of the woman in the flannel pajamas, and said, this is how the enemy works to get you so beat up and fed up and beat down. He said that you are so sick from the land, the food, the air, and the water that you're in the bed, and and my people, my children, are unable to, fulfill the plans and the purposes for which I created them. He said, but I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you to help bring healing to my people, to my children. And then about 6 months ago, he showed me that the reason why he said, my people, my children, are because the people that are not his people, the people that are not his children, wouldn't be looking to fulfill the plans and the purposes for which they were created. And so I was like, oh, that's so good, God. And so, Steve, it's like, there's a million things we can talk about. And there are a million things that we can, bring attention to. But at the end of the day, yes, I think it's important we understand some of this and we talk about some of these things that are being discussed because it impacts them. It impacts you if you're going to be able to work on your car. It impacts you about the data centers. Like this is impacting day to day people. And this is a big deal. Our food, all of this is a big deal. And so, but some of it's a big fat distraction that doesn't mean anything.
And let me just say this too, Michelle, I talk about the 3 words, the 3 big word thing, folks. There are 3 words you got to know, and it's so what. And I know your viewers are going to say, well, that's 2 words. And that's exactly the point. You need that so what category. And what I do is when I get information, I get tons of information coming in. And, I was, spent time with being an advisor to RFK and all these things. I put things in categories. I don't have to know. This should really help you because peace is so important. On every day, the dad and mom at the breakfast table in the morning, peace and joy is really the most important. Okay, that's the most important. And here's what you do. If you don't know something is a truth, but you can know that it's out of order. And you may not know what the truth is, but you just know that it's out of order. And Michelle used to, the phrase was women's intuition, right? Yes. That used to be a big thing. A mama would be in a grocery store and a guy would come in and all of a sudden, man, the hair's standing up on the back of her neck and she's pulling her machete out of her purse because she got 2 little young boys, right? Yeah. So this intuition is like saying to this mama bear, hey, something's out of order. Does she know anything's going on? No, she doesn't know the truth. She just knows it's out of order. But anyone can have that. It's not just women, but women are more in tune with it, especially around with children. And that's what I want to tell your viewers. You need to get in tune with what's going on. Like, I don't know. Something's not right there.
But does it matter? That's the whole point. It's like, there's so much stuff that doesn't matter. We have so many issues day to day in our own lives that, it's like, okay, but, are you missing out with the good quality time with your family? Is this stealing your joy? We have to check ourselves. There are people that reach out to me and will say, how do you do it? How do you do the show? And how do you stay, so positive and encouraged? And it's like, because I keep it in its place. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it. There are times where you can feel overwhelmed or whatever, but for the 99.9% of the time, no, it just doesn't. But I also don't live on social media. I don't sit in that. I'm living life. I'm focusing on Godly Granny and helping people in real tangible ways. And so that is such a focus for me, as you know, because I talk about it all the time. And so, I talk about Godly Granny off air more than I talk about any of the other stuff all added up together, because that's not the calling on my life. The show and Godly Granny are the 2 things. I am so laser focused on what God has me, focused to do. And I'm looking, I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to be. It may be 10 years. I don't know. It may be 20, but it's a life of significance when you're walking in the plans and the purposes for which you were created. I just happen to know I'm doing that by doing the show and by doing Godly Granny. And so that's why I encourage others to do the same. And so, not everybody has the same calling. Not everybody's going to go to DC and speak on July the 1st, but that doesn't mean that they don't have their own very important purposes and plans that God has for them. And so, don't let, the need to know what's going on in the world, because a lot of people, this is just one show they watch. They're on all the time. And that's the thing I worry about for some people. Don't let it come between you and your purpose. Like we all only have so much time. I remember learning when I was getting ready to write a book. I was in the middle of writing my book and I watched a Brian Tracy teaching and I had an aha moment that was a life changer for me. He was talking about how he releases 2 books a year. Now, grant you, he's got a team, but still he releases 2 books a year. And he said, we all have the same, 24 hours in a day. It's just a matter of how you use it. And I remember thinking at that point, like, well, I've listened to some people talk about how they wrote a book in 2 weeks, some in a month. And so, and you've written books, and so it really inspired me and encouraged me to get my book done. And I did. Within just a couple of months, it was completely finished at that point. But I needed that perspective and it was really good. It was a good help for me. But, at the end of the day, we have to keep things in perspective. There's a lot of information, a lot of stuff. But even when we present it, I try to present it in a way that's informative. But again, so you're aware, because some of these things we can't just look the other way all the time, but we can't dwell on it either. And that's what I love about you talking about joy, Steve. It's, not letting these things steal our joy, not letting them be a distraction. The enemy uses distraction. It's one of the big ones. There's discouragement, and he uses a few things, but one of the big ones is distraction. And so we don't want to be distracted from the plans and the purposes for which we were created. And that's what I want to encourage everyone. We got to have the energy. We got to have the health to be able to get up out of the bed. Don't be the sick woman in her flannel pajamas in the bed. And so that's, why I'm so passionate about this, and why I agree with you going to DC, Steve. These people have to hear the truth. They got to know what's really going on. I think there's going to be people that are going to be there that are going to know that something's going on, but they don't really know what. And there's going to be some that are completely oblivious to the issues that's going on with agriculture. And to hear that JBS and some of these foreign companies and all of the favor they've gotten from the United States funding, and yet the American farmers hadn't gotten much of anything. I think there'll be people that will be in the room that will be shocked to hear some of the things that I'm sure you'll be sharing that day.
Well, and let me add to this, Michelle, because we want to give your viewers, we have this calling on our lives that, to encourage people. Let's face it, the stuff that I've learned and, been sprayed by the military 7 years on my deathbed, and go on and on and on. It almost makes you just want to get a pack of cigarettes and play in the freeway. I don't want people to do this. Okay. So I want to encourage you. I tell my children to do this. You need to sit down and write. No. Okay. If you need a cigarette, write a 6 month. You write a 6 month, you write a 2 year, a 5 year, a 10 year, and a life plan. If you don't know where you're going, listen, I just planted 70 pine trees that are little bitty tiny pine trees like this. Yes. Do I know geoengineering is going on? Yes. Do I know they're poisoning the sky? Yes, I do that. But I also look at the scriptures and look at the things that the Creator says in Genesis. In Genesis 8:22 says food time and harvest is going to be, it's always going to be until the sun stops. Okay.
Yeah.
So please, in part of this stuff that's going on in social media and Instagram and UFC and Bill Gates and oh my gosh, and Monsanto and glyphosate and all this stuff, and oh my gosh, and Michelle Obama's a man, and that all that stuff is to paralyze you to not get up.
Yeah.
And the most important thing I can tell you is if you can just stay married and raise your children to be good people. Yeah. If you do that, you have knocked it out of the park.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think there's just, what bothers me, Steve? I tell you what's bothering me is this UFC thing from yesterday. Now, there'll be people that'll go, oh, it was a calm, it was this, it was that, who knows what all. But it's so much confusion. And there'll be people that'll be convinced that it was a good thing. But the thing is, it's such a distraction. And, I've started to say to my kids, take a step back and just look at who says the name of Jesus and who doesn't. Because there's an awful lot of people, pretty much almost everybody, barely ever talks about God. And I'm not talking about, just politicians or, podcast. I'm talking about just in general. I saw something a little bit ago and I want to go back to it. This was so good. I so totally relate to this too. I know exactly what this woman means when she said it. And I meant to read it. Oh yeah, here we go. NH Mama says, I've been speaking truth for 20 years and people think I'm nuts. Yeah. And look, I don't care if people think I'm nuts. Shoot. I've had people telling me I'm crazy for years. And so, you have a sense of humor, people will do that. But yeah. And D for the Almighty says, your joy in Christ is your strength. Yes. And so that's the point. And yes, Christ believer, it's a check in your spirit when you get that check in your spirit. And so, at the end of the day, it bothers me that people accept this whole like bread and circus thing, and it's okay, and oh, well, we're at war, and so, but it's 5D chess, and it's, you know, the art of war, and it's this and that, and I'm like, but we have no proof that that's what's going on. We really don't. And you know, there's so much that's such a convoluted mess. And I was telling my son today, because he's off, and I took him to lunch, and it was just the two of us, and I said to him, and we were talking about a number of things, and I said, you know, the thing that really impacts everybody is gas prices and food. It impacts everyone. And I was listening to a video that Jack and Margie Flynn sent me yesterday, and it was of Catherine Austin Fitts. We're going to play it here on the show. It's about, I don't know, 10 or 11 minutes long. We're going to play it tomorrow. But it's interesting because she says something in the video that I've been thinking about. And you know, I've learned some big lessons from her and listening to her for the last few years. Every so often I'll listen to her, not a lot, a couple of videos a year and snippets here and there. But it's interesting because she said, you know, that they're saying like the economy is going to be fine. The people won't, but the economy, because the rich people will be fine. As long as the rich people's fine, then we'll be fine. It's like, really? And so I got to thinking about that. And that's why I was saying, like, our kids can't move out. Our kids have great jobs, save almost every penny they make except for gas. And I'm shocked at how well they're doing, and they can't afford to move out. I mean, the inflation, the price, it's insane. And my son was telling me, he's such a high detail oriented person, and he has down to a T how much he pays in gas in a year. And he's telling me about the new gas prices and how it's raised his gas bill $952 or something a year. But he knows. And he says, if gas prices stay what they are, this is what it's, you know, what it's going to do to me. And we were talking about that, and it's like, it's just so crazy. And so you're saying it's $700,000 to fix the grass that's gotten damaged from last night's UFC. I think it's interesting that people would know that somebody knew that. But however that happens, and how in the world somebody would spend $700,000, but okay. So let's just say it's even $20,000. I just have a problem when you have so many people that are hurting, that I don't understand the UFC thing. I just don't agree. And it won't matter what reason or excuse or convoluted mess that somebody's going to say. This is, how are the people not first? I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, I have a problem with it. I have a real problem with it. And maybe this is part of the problem, is that you can spend $700,000 on fixing grass because you had a UFC fight. I think there is a problem with priorities in this country. And I think there are a lot of people that lack compassion for our elderly, for mentally disabled, because boy, we got plenty of those right now, and our veterans who are hurting. And so I think it's disgusting that anybody would spend $5,000 on fixing a yard, much less $700,000. It's just disgusting. I don't care if somebody thinks that it's some kind of an op or what. I think it's disgusting. I personally am looking at the people and the needs, and there are a lot of needs right now. There's a lot of education and a lot of hurting, and it's disgusting. That's just my opinion. Steve, what do you want to add? You can disagree with me. No, and I'll just tell you to go and get you a cigarette and play in the middle of the road. Okay.
Get a cigarette. Marlboro Man. So what I want to add to this stuff. I don't know how my brain works this way. You know, I don't know. Anyway, what I want to add to this is the new proposal too. There's been breaking news all morning that I want to share with your viewers. Not only is this UFC and all the money spent on that, he was selling tickets for $1 million a pop to the front row guys. But today's proposal to Iran was that we are going to give them $300 billion for reconstruction. Okay. So when I went to DC, my farm plan was $375 billion, but also it would have created 471% ancillary jobs. And also, I have 200 top doctors on board me, showing that since 50% of all the children between 1 and 17 all have 50% of those have a chronic disease, we're spending $1.3 trillion a year on those children. If we cut that to 1/3 out of that, it would pay for my farm plan. Us investing we just blew Iran off the face of the earth. Now we're going to give them $300 billion. So we spent $60 billion to blow them up, and now we're going to give them $300 billion. The money is there, folks. This nation should not be in the shape that we're in. It should not be. It should not be this shape. I'm sorry, because the money is there, and we need a reformation of this country. And no, I don't believe in civil war. And I tell you the reason I don't believe in civil war and rising up against the government with arms and all this, because we do not have enough people that are educated to know what is going on in this nation, and we'll just wind up killing each other. That's the main point of that. And we need to do it another way. And I have a plan that's being announced July 1st.
So Deborah West says the new vehicles have computers that need specialized equipment in order to work on them. Not everyone has the equipment or can afford to buy it. My husband is a certified mechanic, so he buys the tools. You know, the other thing I'm wondering about, Deborah, is I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's probably, when it comes to the cars, that's probably similar to what they're doing with the tractors, where there's software that has to be renewed every year, so they get those fees as well. You know, are you noticing you own nothing and be happy? That's part of it. Over the weekend, I realized that there was what are those things called? They were called Redbox. And, you know, you went and rented the DVD player or the DVD and you put it in your DVD player. And do you remember those Redbox things? Well, I didn't really realize they were gone. They're completely gone. I pulled into a gas station I hadn't been in, you know, really in a few years. And I used to only go there to get a Redbox with my husband and watch a movie when we were renovating the house we're in, or that we were in at the time. And so I thought that was weird that, you know, those are gone now. And so there's nothing tangible. It's always a subscription. And I was thinking about that there's so many different services. If you want to watch one movie, well, you got to be on this channel. So you got to subscribe to that. And that's $6.99 a month. And then, oh, wait, I want to watch this movie, you know, and this show. Wait a minute, it's on a different platform and I got to rent that too. I mean, I thought this was supposed to be cheaper than DirecTV. And somehow we're spending just as much money. It's just they nickel and diming you on all these different platforms, and it's just insane. But I thought that was interesting that, you know, the tangible DVD is gone. You know, you gotta subscribe. You're owning nothing, and you're supposed to be happy about it. Okay, let's go on ahead and move forward. We got a couple more things I wanted to make sure that we covered today. So listen to this video. This is so interesting, and it reminds me of the docuseries, The Religion Business. Remember how they did the docuseries and they ran the numbers and talked about the church and all this money that they had. So listen to what this guy says, and I want you to remember the Roman Pyramid of Power, which we'll show you in a minute. Let's see.
They built a $10 trillion empire through your donations. They pass the basket every Sunday with a smile for over 2,000 years. It's called tithing. The church will tell you it's sacred, biblical, that giving 10% of your income is a divine obligation, a covenant between you and God. But while you are faithfully dropping 10% of your paycheck into that basket, while struggling to pay your rent, feed your family, and just trying to survive, the Vatican was quietly becoming the single biggest landowner on the face of the planet. Their net worth is now between 10 to 15 trillion dollars. Real estate on every continent, gold reserves, the Vatican Bank. What does this institution, built entirely on the financial sacrifice of the poorest members, give back to the poor? $30 billion a year against $10 trillion. That represents 0.3% of their total wealth. They're keeping 99.7%, and they call it ministry, while they ask you to tithe 10%, 30 times that amount. You're not tithing to God. You're unwittingly funding the wealthiest empire in human history under the guise of faith.
Okay, so 3/8 of 1% of the total wealth. That's not even 1%. So, but yet they tell us that we're supposed to do 10%. You can't make this crazy up. Oh my word. Okay, so let's look at the Roman Pyramid of Power real quick. I love a good Roman Pyramid of Power. And so it's a tri-city state. So you got Washington, D.C., who's over war and terror. It's the Zionist government on the left. You've got, of course, the Vatican City. It's over Roman law, Agenda 2030 at the top. And then, of course, to the right, you've got and of course, they're over religion too, Vatican City. And then, of course, the City of London, which is over the money and finance, which is the Rothschild banking. So you got the Vatican City at the top here, which is, and then underneath that, you've got the Jesuits and the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, the 32 degree plus Freemasons, and so on. And of course, organized religion. And so this is your Roman pyramid of power. Don't forget too, at the very bottom, it says NGOs, think tanks, and what? Big charities. And so, one thing Mark Taylor always says is evil can't, get out evil. And so you're in the same pot, the 501c3s are just part of it, is what he's saying. But I know a lot of people will say, well, there are a lot of 501c3s that do good. I think it's interesting that the Pope, the Vatican, all this at the top. When you look at this, they're sitting at the top here. And so, Steve, what do you have to say? What do you think about what this guy is sharing with these numbers? They're actually lower than what the religion business said.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say two things on this. I want your viewers, what you're going to do is just do a Google search to Unum Sanctum of 1302. Unum Sanctum of 1302. And basically, this makes the Pope as the lieutenant for Christ. And basically, that's the way that all lays that out. But it's worth just read the first part of it. But what you have to understand is when these reformations happen in the world, these men would call out these systems. And they would call people back to the creator of the universe and get them in sync with what God really says in his word. Now, how this plays out is the church. What the church does is the church preaches Christ and preaches the gospel, that there's salvation and there's all this too. But they also, what they do is know, how many of your viewers know that they are the Melchizedek priesthood? There are three priesthoods that are mentioned in the scriptures. There's the Aaronic priesthood, there's the Levitical priesthood, and there's the Melchizedek priesthood. And see, once you find out that you're the Melchizedek priesthood, once you find this out, you'll realize that you don't have to answer to any of this stuff. You don't have to tithe the 10%. And what the church has done is, what they do today is they still hold on to the Levitical tithe and the teachings, and they blend that into the scriptures. And most of them blend the Aaronic priesthood, the Levitical priesthood, and the Melchizedek. They blend them all together, and then they preach you a nice sermon, make you feel guilty, and then you pop your money out and you can't go home and pay your rent, and you think God's not blessing you. And the real thing is understanding order is that when you understand that you're the Melchizedek priesthood, you can go to God by yourself. You give what God tells you to give to whom you are supposed to give it to. Maybe it's the guy at the grocery store that you've never seen before, and God says, give him $100. Maybe it's that. That's the problem, is the church has taken the place of being connected to the creator universe and having a conversation with him. You are the Melchizedek priesthood, and the tabernacle of Moses is the key to this and understanding this. And that is what people need to know. If you understand this, you'll understand all this right here is completely 100% out of order, and tithing is not biblical.
All right. Well, we'll just drop the mic. That was really good. That was really good, Steve. All right. So a man donated, while we're on it, we're going to talk about this one. So a man donates a pair of shoes, right? He puts an air tag inside the pair of shoes. He wants to see what happens to them. He donated them. So what happened? Let's take a look. Where'd they go?
This guy donated his old shoes to a Red Cross container in Germany to find out where they really go, but what he found might just piss you off. Because what he decided to do was to put an air tag in the shoes to see exactly where they were going to go. So he took the air tag, planted it in the shoe, and then sent them off, only to find that the shoes ended up in Bosnia. He then decided that he was literally going to fly to the location to see exactly where the shoes were and exactly what they were doing with them. And after traveling hundreds of miles to go find his shoes and track down exactly where they are, he actually actually found them in a shop in Bosnia. He was able to buy these shoes back for just $12. And when he was buying them, he asked the staff where the shoes actually came from. And the only thing they said was that they came from Germany, but there was no mention of the Red Cross whatsoever. Which makes people wonder, where do the shoes that people donate to the Red Cross actually go? Are they going to people in need like they're supposed to be, or are they just being resold so that other people can profit from it? But thank you to Mo for running this experiment so we can get more data on where this stuff really ends up.
Okay.
I mean,
They selling them. I mean, people have no shame. It's just so crazy.
well, and this is why people need to know, you know, the big eye opener for me was I did 11 years of jail, street, and prison ministry. And when you start hearing about these orphans that were trafficked to the church and told them, you all going to act right, you don't get food and you get beat when you get back, because we're going to play this game because we need them to donate money. I heard that stuff years and years and years ago. Well, you don't want to believe it because it destroys hope. But the hope is for you to get educated and you stand in the gap and say, but listen, learn to do what the creator of the universe tells you to do personally, not what Michelle and I say, not what your church says. You talk to God and ask him, hey, where can I give money and how much?
Sometimes I think I don't want to even really, we have to take responsibility for ourselves, especially as we're adults. But I do think that there have been countless that have been misled and have been brainwashed and MK altered into thinking, oh, that 10% goes to the church. But really then what it does is it shifts the responsibility to the church. And you go, okay, well, I'm done. I gave my 10%. Now I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go mow my yard and I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna be busy taking care of my responsibilities this week. And they think that they've done all they need to do and they've handed it over to the church instead of what you said. That's why I said it was worthy of dropping the mic, because you nailed it. It's about how you feel led, And so I went through that experience myself where one day the Holy Spirit told me to stop tithing to the church. And I thought, okay, well, that's not a good sign. I mean, I this was years ago. And I remember thinking something must be up with the church, and turned out, sure enough, there was. But it was a full year before I ended up finding out what was going on with the church and their finances. But what happened is that through that year, I had some staggering things happen, where jaw dropping, where the Holy Spirit would tell me to do something with money. And I would be like, okay, well, I'm going to need to see 3 camels in my family room. And, in order to do that. And so the next morning, I'm just human, and so the next morning I'm getting ready and the Holy Spirit shows me, he's like, it's been 10 weeks that I hadn't been tithing. And if you multiply that tithe times 10, it was almost to the dollar of what he was showing me to give to somebody to help them. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll be doing that. And so, but you see what I'm saying? All you have to do is ask, he will answer. And so ask, what am I supposed to do? Show me who I'm supposed to help, move my heart. I say, even when we were collecting the money for North Carolina from Hurricane Helene, we collected over $255,000. I never said people owe it, send your tithe money here. What I said was, please pray about it. And please prayerfully consider. I would never want somebody to send money for me to go and buy food and groceries to take to North Carolina that they weren't supposed to send. But I was trusting God in this whole situation. And even I learned some lessons through all of that as well. And my faith was built even through some of the things that happened and all of that. So it was just such a God thing. It was so great, by the way. It was just great. Okay, so Rita from YouTube says, I always learn from your channel. Thank you for continuing to follow God's leading for your life. Thank you, Rita. And that's not just me. It's also Steve. And so, Steve, thank you for always bringing in your expertise and what you know as well. Will you please share? We had somebody a little while ago asking where to buy the moon phase calendar. And so I know that you've been busy this week with people that bought, what was it? They bought the moon phase. If they bought the moon phase calendar, what's the deal? Share it for us.
Okay. So here's the deal. If you want to talk to me about what's going on with your mammals at your house, if you got a problem, if you buy the apothecary book, and you buy the 6-month moon phase calendar, because I'm going to tell you to go to this and go to this page. It's very easy to do. The moon phase calendar, you'll print that off. I'm going to tell you to do those things first. If you buy those things, you just send an email, send it to sass-usa.com, send it in there, purchase that, and then we'll set up a time for me to talk with you. I'll talk to you for 30 minutes. Actually, some of your people, let me just talk about 2 things that happened on the very first people. So I can handle about 4 today. I've got several phone calls, but 2 of the people that I talked to, most people don't know that certain breeds of dogs cannot have ivermectin. And the test that they need is called an MDR1 gene test. If your dog has an MDR1 gene test and it tests positive, that dog, ivermectin, will kill it. And so the thing about it is there's 2 breeds of dogs. It's in the shepherds and the herding breeds like Border Collie, Blue Heeler, those German Shepherds, those shepherd breeds. But only 10% of those dogs have it. That's why you need an MDR1 gene test. Most people don't know this stuff, and you can't do it. So a lot of the recipes that I talk about, and 2 of the clients that I talked to that were from your show, I talked to them for about 20 minutes. I said, listen, you get your MDR1 gene test. You have my number. When you get that test back, I want you to call me. Then I'm going to give you a recipe for little Fifi.
Okay, so little Fifi. All right, so but where do you get the MDR gene or MDR1 gene test? At the veterinarian's office?
You do not go to the veterinarian office to get it.
Say.
What you want to do is there are so many places out there that sell this, and some of them sell it for $300. It all goes to the same lab. You want to go online, type in MDR1 gene. If you do not have a German Shepherd and you don't have a herding breed like a Collie or Border Collie or a Blue Heeler, if you know, pointing dogs, labs don't have MDR1. So you just have to know. But if you have a dog that's a Heinz 57, you might want to get a test on that. Heinz 57 might be a Collie something. The chances of that dog having it are probably none. But that's what people need to know about how to use these meds. But once you learn how to doctor, and what I do is I teach people how to be their own apothecary. That's what I do. Yeah. I teach them how to be their own apothecary, and let's face it, the vet bills are off the charts now. Oh my gosh, they're so expensive. I talked to a lady the other day. She had already spent 10 grand on her dog, and her dog was not better.
Oh, well, I believe it. Okay, so I was just talking with my son at lunch today, and I was telling him, I said, I've been getting emails from viewers, and I don't know if you've heard about this, Steve, but I'm seeing from the viewers that are writing me and saying, you're not going to believe this. My lease can't be renewed unless my animals are, or my pet, my fur baby, Fifi, is unable to, until they're vaccinated. And so I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what, Steve, you know what's going on here, right? So we know that BlackRock and Vanguard own a lot of these, you know where I'm going, right? Oh, yeah. So they own the apartment complexes. Now, all of a sudden, apartment complexes, they used to say, oh, we just don't take a dog, or we just don't allow a dog over 35 pounds, or, at least in our area, it was this way for years, forever. And so it was a certain weight that was allowed, and that was it. Now they're pushing this whole vaccine. And then we've covered this on the show, but it's been a minute. So I'm going to make sure everybody is caught up to speed on this. So a lot of the veterinarians' offices have been purchased. It's not, old country veterinarian guy, like the guy I took my fur babies to for years. He's older, he's retired, and he's gone now into retirement. And, these people are either selling out to BlackRock and Vanguard, or what's happening is they're going, I'm not going to do that. They sell to a younger veterinarian who then turns around and flips it 4 months later to BlackRock or Vanguard and makes a killing on the practice. And so then you're right back to that practice also being owned by them. So they're pushing, well, you want to rent here? Gotta have your animals vaccinated, and then let me know. What? I mean, this is insanity. And so, but it's all, making sense at this point. And so my son and I were talking about it and what's going on, the bigger picture here. And of course, we know about the mRNA vaccines and all of this with the dogs and the fur babies. And so, look, I can only tell people what I'm doing. Flashmore isn't, he is not going through the doors of any veterinarian office, period. I've heard too many stories from too many people that own fur babies that never got their dogs any shots, and their fur babies live 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. And so I think I'm going to take that cue and put it in God's hands and make sure that he is, living his best life, which Flashmore is. I can guarantee that.
Well, Michelle, I want to tell your viewers, one of the biggest things I got in trouble for is because I called out and said, hey, what they're doing to the doggies, so I've had 1,500 people contact me with dead dogs, and 3 of those are my clients. And because what I do is I just started doing the research. Okay, send me what you did. So, when you get past 80 and they all went to the vet and got this and this, which I'm not going to say here, where they get this and this, and that thing puts them in the bone pile, or they develop these chronic tumors or whatever that's going on. And I tell people what they do and how to work it all out and all that. And that's the thing you need to do. Learning how to live in the matrix. That's the game plan. So if you buy the Pod Carry book, you buy the 6-month calendar, it's going to save you so much money in what you're going to do and changing. I mean, I talked to somebody the other day, it wasn't from your show. They were spending $500 a month on this souped up dog food that, like, I'd never even heard of it before. And I was like, but a dog had all kinds of skin issues. And that's one of the biggest ones. Skin issues is one of the biggest ones right now.
Yeah. And so they're on the souped up food, but yet they still have the skin issues. So it doesn't sound like that's working. All right, Steve, thank you so much. See you next week. Okay. So also wanted to share, the tinctures are back in stock except for burdock root. I know that they were out of stock there for a minute. I wanted to update everybody on that. And then also I wanted to update, I had a customer, a viewer that's also a customer, had a great suggestion. And so I want to make sure that you know about this. So the tincture product descriptions are printable. And so you can go to the free resources page on godlygranny.com at the bottom. So you go to the main page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, little bitty words, and there's one that's called free resources. And so you can go there, and there's a tinctures one where you can download the PDF. And as we release more tinctures, which we do have more coming, then those product descriptions will be added to that PDF, and we'll upload a new one and you'll be able to download that. But just a heads up that we will be updating it as those tinctures are released. And this is what the image looks like. Okay. Also, as of today, just the last little bit, and over the weekend, we shared a great image that helps you to know the differences between the goat milk and the sheep milk soaps. And so this is so good. Different people are like, but which one do I use? They're both absolutely amazing. I got to tell you, they all smell amazing as well. But we wanted to help you know the difference between the goat milk soaps that we offer and the sheep milk soaps that we offer. So that way it could help you to make an informed decision. And so we put this in the newsletter this last weekend. So if you're not signed up for the e-newsletter, you want to make sure we send that out once a month. It's always filled with all different kinds of information. Mike Fulgens has an article in there every month. We talk about all different kinds of stuff in there. And so we put this in there as well. And then it's now on the free resources page. So if you want it, you can take it from there, or want to read it and not sure, which one you need. And so it kind of helps you with that. And that's what the image looks like. So if you click on it, it'll give you that graphic, that infographic. So we wanted you to be aware that it's on there for you now. I want to just make sure people know and give you that help. I hope that you've enjoyed today's show. I want to let you know Mike Fulgens is going to be here tomorrow. He's back from DC. He says he's got, I don't know, I haven't talked to him. He says he's got some great information. He can't wait to talk with you guys and let you know. So I'm wondering what's going on. What did he find out? And so I'm excited about that. And so he'll be here first thing tomorrow at the top of the show tomorrow. And then I told you I was going to share a video that Jack and Margie Flynn sent me that was of Catherine Austin Fitts. It's very educational and informational. And we'll be sharing that after our time with Dr. Mike Fulgens. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Oof, we covered a lot today. I hope that you feel a little bit smarter, and also just a little bit. I got to tell you, Flashmore, we were in the backyard today, and the neighbor, his arch nemesis, came out, and she's just the cutest thing. And her name is Daisy, and he was yelling at her and started chasing her around the yard. Well, he got a hold of her, and he bit her right on the booty. And then she yelled out, and he was just not having her being in his yard. It was awful. I got on to him. And so he's in the house. He's not even out here in the she shed today. And I'm sure he's devastated about it. But anyways, and so he's in trouble. Anyways, so please pray for her. She's a poor thing. He can't stand her. But anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you right here next time on the Michelle Moore Show.
Ever read the ingredients on your everyday products and think, wait, is this shampoo or a science experiment? If your lotion needs a translator, a lab coat, and a warning label, it might be time for a change. Godly Granny products are made with purpose, love, and ingredients you can actually recognize. No mystery chemicals, no toxins, just clean, simple goodness. The way Granny would have wanted, because your skincare shouldn't require a chemistry degree. From shampoo, lotion, skincare, and all natural health remedies, Godly Granny has everything your family needs. It's no wonder we have over 1,200 5-star reviews from our amazing customers to prove it. Join the families just like yours who've switched to Godly Granny. Visit godlygranny.com and sign up for our emails to receive a special discount code for 10% off your first order, plus exclusive updates and information on newly released products.
Hi, I'm Linda Bamber Olson, the inventor of the Wave Watch, the world's first frequency therapy watch. It features over 1,100 targeted frequencies combined into 150 playlists for ease of use. These sounds are acoustical and they move through your body, through your skin and your bones. You don't necessarily have to hear it. As each frequency goes through, it can be realigning, revitalizing, reconnecting, and even rebalancing your body all the way to the cellular level. So that's why we have so many testimonies for aches, ADD and ADHD, allergies, colds and flu, dental, emotions, headaches, joints, kidney stones, nerves, organs, skin health, swelling, tremors, vagus nerve, and so many more. Use this code for $100 off when you purchase the Wave Watch. Thanks for learning about frequencies, using them, and supporting the Wave Watch.
Universal Coin and Bullion is my partner for gold, silver, rare coins, and precious metal IRAs. For over 30 years, they've helped more than 500,000 customers and completed over 2.6 billion in precious metals transactions. They're offering callers 2 1-ounce American Silver Eagles and a 1/10-ounce American Gold Eagle at actual dealer cost. Call Universal Coin and Bullion today.
For Michelle's social media links, go to michellemooreshow.com.